I can see the Russian army roll through my head. Inside me lies the enemy, the other half is dead. I've got time.
Greetings from Stalingrad. Actually, Georgia. It's just the winter has felt like Stalingrad. I've got very sick. I've been sick 2 weeks. The flu, it's horrible. It's going around. I've had the fever. My lungs have shut down. We'll either live or we'll die. But it's been record wet, cold. How can Georgia feel like Stalingrad every year? I've got to get out of the polyester security business. But speaking of polyester security business, this is my Russian trench coat. Actually, it is Serbian, but it's the closest thing I could find, and it's polyester as well. And these are actual Soviet medals. These are not repro. These are solid silver. At least this is the hero of the Great Patriotic War, and then the Order of the Red Star. Those are solid silver. I don't know about the rest of this garbage. I got this when I was in college. And another cool thing, it has a built-in Makarov pouch. And how's that for concealed carry? Love it. But I rarely, yeah, I've had it since 25 years. But no, I'm not alienated at all from my fellow Georgians, if you can tell. But, yeah, Stalingrad, people. But this is my Mosin Nagant 1944 carbine. It has the... Okay, can we work it? The extendable, collapsible, side-folding bayonet, but this is the shortest carbine model. And actually, I've never fired this one, but I do have a... Ooh, that's a hard-hitting firing pin. That woke me up. But I do have a 1917 Tula example, double eagle, made right before the revolution. It's actually an 1891 version, the longest version, and that one is so amazingly accurate. But Mosin Nagants are hard to clean. I don't shoot them that often. But as the only Marxist MGTOW Asperger channel out there, of course my time and requests for interviews are coming in for all over, so I haven't had time to make a video. I'm just kidding, nobody gives a shit. But that's one reason you can entrust my opinion on shit, because I'm not shilling on fucking Patreon to make $1 and telling you what you want to hear, like Jordan Peterson, that fucking idiot, and all the rest of that crowd. I truly don't have anything to lose and don't give a shit. I don't have zero fucks to give. So let me give you my honest opinion on some shit, particularly Jordan Peterson. I've been watching a lot of hit videos on him. This channel is not a well put together piece like Three Arrows with all that German Aryan rationality, or ContraPoints with that great stage production, a lot of heart put into that. ContraPoints is excellent. Check out that channel. And then Ivan Shady Existence, which I've been binge watching lately, is also great. He keeps it real too. But there are some good channels out there. There's a lot of bullshit on YouTube, kids. And there's a lot of autism out there. And not just diagnosed autism. Like all these super fans of Jordan Peterson. Most of them are alienated loner autistics that are not diagnosed. Especially noticeable in his female fans. These women that are engineers, are very intelligent, and are interested in philosophy, maybe libertarianism or what have you. But some of them are actual, engineers, working engineers, and but Jordan changes their life, and they write these love letters to him. And there's a couple in particular that I have in mind. I won't name any names, but one girl that did sort of how her views were changed by Jordan Peterson and her sort of right-wing bent by Jordan Peterson. She also went into the same long video. She went into how she had anxiety and only wanted to work alone and all this other stuff. And I said, honey, don't you think you just, you've got Asperger's syndrome? And she said, I'm scared to find out. I've got so many symptoms. See, so a lot of these super fans of Jordan Peterson are undiagnosed people with Asperger's syndrome. Now, most of people diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome are liberals. They probably all, mostly voted for Clinton, and they're just establishment type liberals. But there's something about being undiagnosed and looking for answers and meaning in the world. And autistics are very interested in meaning and ideas. That's one reason they're better at ideas than other people, because they're interested in them. In America, in an extroverted culture where people just care about their social status and having fun and making money, people don't so much care about ideas. And it's impossible to have a conversation with people about ideas. So it pushes people to YouTube. And so YouTube is kind of a world of autistic ideas and meaning. Now, meaning, back to Jordan Peterson, is dangerous because life is meaningless. Your life has no more meaning than the fruit fly, but other than the meaning that you give it. But people look for this meaning, and they find it in that's what they're getting out of Jordan Peterson, I suppose. But and in some ways, he's a traditional conservative. He not much different than the professors I had in college who were conservatives, Christian conservatives. One in particular I'm thinking of, my Western Civ teacher, who was a minister and a conservative, and he pushed a line that, Western civilization is unique and powerful because of Christianity and Jesus. And this is, of course, fucking ridiculous. But Jordan pushes that same sort of thing, but he does it in using Jungian psychology and archetypes, because, of course, educated people can't really believe in a fundamentalist type Christianity. It has to be sort of demythologized and done with psychology and archetypes. Now, and the bigger question is there any truth to Jungian psychology? Well, it's good poetry. I've read a lot of Jung, and the psychology of types is good. It's accurate. We have to realize that people have different personality types and capabilities and abilities to understand things. That's rule number one if we're not going to annihilate each other. And Jungian psychology is good poetry, but is it hard science? No, not really. And the archetypes. Do the archetypes really exist? And are they really useful? I'd say, as much. I've read a lot of Joseph Campbell, and when I was younger, it was a huge inspiration. So, that's kind of a connection to me and maybe these Jordan Peterson fans, because, he deals in comparative mythology and Jungian psychology and the archetypes, and he was hugely popular, starting because of PBS. Bill Moyers had a show about him, and I read most of his books, but he's a terrible writer, really. I got very little out of it. But his best one by far is Myths to Live By, which is a series of lectures. But it's unfair to compare Joseph Campbell to Jordan Peterson, because, Joseph Campbell has some real hard-hitting scholarship, whereas Jordan Peterson is off the rails with some of his ideas. Hitler did not really want to win World War II, and lobsters are connected to us evolutionarily. I'm just crazy, off the wall shit. Now, Jordan gets some things right, certainly. As a MGTOW Marxist, I do believe that feminism is out of control, that there is no patriarchy, that's a bunch of propaganda, and that a man cannot control a crazy woman. My God, that's the gospel. No truer words ever spoken. But most of what he says is garbage. And particularly talking about cultural Marxism, it's just a revamp of the Nazi phrase Jewish Bolshevism, because that doesn't That's a little too politically incorrect, but it's just ridiculous. There's no cultural Marxism. Feminism has nothing to do with Marxism. HR departments have nothing to do with Marxism. You can't just call everything you don't want to study and don't believe in and don't want to just call it all cultural Marxism, and everything's cultural Marxism except my narrow line of conservative thought. And then there's the other thing that a lot of these gurus don't call themselves conservatives, and he's anti-trans people. He doesn't want to use their pronouns, and he creates this fake campaign where he says he's being censored, and he uses it to make money. He's a hack and a shill like everybody else these days. The damn fucking and I don't like all this Patreon shit, because it's like, what if like Alan Watts had a Patreon. He had like 2 ex-wives, a bunch of kids to support, so he had to crank out books. But the books are good. What if he'd had a Patreon, all his guru hippie followers sending him money? We wouldn't have anywhere near the body of work. But these days, it's all about begging and shilling and telling people what they want to hear, and nobody just calls the bullshit. And Jordan Peterson is bullshit. Okay, what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, fuck Jordan Peterson. But cultural Marxism, though, what a bunch of horse shit. I'm an actual Marxist. I do believe in class conflict theory, but I'm more of a Marxist in the line of Howard Zinn, the American Marxist, late great historian that was down here in Georgia at Spelman and worked for Martin Luther King. And I highly recommend his books. The Zen Reader is even better than the People's History of the United States. And particularly, I like the last sections on the tax system. I like the nuts and bolts of real economic tax policy. And so there's that. Well, I've been dying of the flu, but I've been building a knife collection. And for Christmas, I got this very fine Buck 110, the epitome of redneck hunting knives. But I've always wanted one. But my best friend, he got me one for Christmas. And then I also got this one, which came in this very nice AK magazine box. It's cheesy, but it's nice. And it is a boker Kalashnikov. It is a switchblade. And these are not that expensive. I highly recommend them. And solid. It's called a boker Kalashnikov. And see what else happened. I've been trying to restrain my horror at the world recently. But I went out and got myself a Smith & Wesson bodyguard with a laser. And where is that damn thing? Yeah, you can see the laser. The laser's intuitive and effective and dialed in. I kind of always wanted a bodyguard. This one is particularly light. It's polymer. It's not like the bodyguards made in the 60s. But I wanted something that was dead on reliable and harkens back to the older days. But I want something I can just leave loaded and not worry about wearing down a magazine spring, if that's a thing. That's a hotly debated issue. But and get this, these are FTP. What the hell are these? FTX? Huh? I don't have the box. Let's read the back of the damn thing. Federal. But these new ones, the bullet's down in the casing. That's not an empty cartridge there. That is a throwback to what the Russians did on their original Mosin Nagant pistols, where they put. But this is done to keep the powder from moving around. So it's there's no air in there, and they're very effective, very nice. But so yeah, I'll continue to be hard left, real Marxist, and I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about it. So there's your non-Patreon backed opinion for the day. Konnichiwa.